We are well over a year into Walmart's On Time in Full initiative, and it's always great to check in with Mr. Colby Beland of CaseStack to find out what's really happening on the front lines of supply chain. Colby, thank you for being back with us.
Great to be back.
Always great to see you. Hey, this far into OTIF, we have seen it change so much since it was first launched. What are some of the recent changes that have been thrown at suppliers?
Well, the most recent change, going back to Growth Summit last year, when they announced OTIF and what the penalties were going to be, the baselines for this fiscal year 19 at Walmart, for a full truckload supplier, were expected to be at 95%, and for an LTL supplier, we're expected to be at a baseline of 36% or a 10% improvement over whatever your baseline was. Walmart backed off of the 95% to 85%, which was a pleasant surprise for some, but the LTL baseline jumped up to 50%. So instead of being the 36% baseline, it jumped up to 50%. I think that is one of the biggest moves that suppliers, found to be interesting. But the bigger challenge is, I think some of the suppliers are just now starting to understand the difference between supply chain reliability and OTIF. And what I mean by that is, supply chain reliability was a 4-day window at 90%. And so let's say you came in at 89%. That 3% penalty that was still there in supply chain reliability was only on the 1% that was outside of the 90%. With OTIF, if your baseline's 50% and you come in at 49%, the 3% is now on 51% of the cases. So I think people are just now starting to actually understand the costs associated with OTIF versus supply chain reliability, and I think that's probably the one thing that caught more people off guard.
When OTIF was first launched, we had more than a handful of suppliers that kind of took a look at it and said, you know what, I'm just going to pay the penalties. I'm not going to bother changing my process. Now with some of the changes that you've been talking about, do you hear more of that attitude, or are they starting to come around and change their processes now that we're further into OTIF?
The latter, definitely. Yeah. The latter. Because of the punitive, I think the suppliers had that mentality, well, if I'm only 1% out and it's not that big. But now that if I fall outside the window, it's whatever it is on 3%. I think they're starting to understand that they can't just have their heads in the sand any longer, and they have to figure out a solution. But more importantly, it's not even about that. It's about Walmart's expectation of having the product on the shelf. And that's really what OTIF is really all about. I don't think Walmart or any other retailers, I was actually at another retailer in Cincinnati yesterday, having conversations with them, and they're like, it's not about penalties. It's not about revenue. It's not a revenue stream for us. It's about having the product on the shelf, and we just need to hold our suppliers accountable so we can execute and have the product on the shelf. And if we don't have benchmarks or thresholds for suppliers to achieve, the guy used the analogy of a test, right? If I tell a kid that they only have to have a 50% on the test, are they going to study for the test? Or are they just going to go in and take it blind and know that they can make at least a 50? And that was kind of the analogy, and it kind of made sense to me that you got to hold, you have to have a threshold that the supplier is going to work towards to make the result on-shelf availability there. And so I think that's really what it's about, and I think the suppliers are just now starting to understand that is the goal, and that for them to be a category leader, a category captain, the best in that category, then they need to be as close to that 95% as they can get.
Now, Colby, you and the team at CaseStack, you're working with large suppliers, small suppliers every week. Are there some common hurdles that they're still challenged with, and some solutions that you bring to the table?
Well, the biggest challenge in today's market is capacity. Just the transportation industry, whether it be LTL, whether it be full truckload, whether it be parcel, capacity is tighter than it's ever been, and it's being driven by multiple factors. Government regulations have gone into effect for electronic logging devices. They went into effect in December, and then they became formal April 1st. So it's taken a significant amount of capacity out of the marketplace just for carriers that are out of compliance with their ELDs. That's having an impact on the market. Then driver shortage is real. I mean, I've been in the transportation business for 27 years. I've always heard about driver shortage, but it's real now, and it's because unemployment is so low. It's very difficult, and it's just impacting capacity as a whole.
So now when you're looking ahead, 2018, we're going into holiday 2, back to school, which is going to be coming up before we know it. What do you see happening with OTIF as we now come into the busy season?
Well, the busy season's just around the corner. It'll be here before we know it. I don't foresee a lot of changes in the program itself. Hopefully the changes are with the improvements that the carriers and the suppliers have figured out in executing and performing the OTIF level. I fully anticipate to see everybody's OTIF scores continue to rise as they find ways to mitigate or avoid, the penalties.
Yeah, we appreciate the update, Colby. It's always great spending time with you.
Great
Thanks
to be
so
back.
much.
Thank you.